Hey everyone, this is Steve from GamersNexus.net, and today we're looking at NZXT's Phantom 630 Enthusiast McMansion gaming case. I've done 3 case reviews recently, so this will be the last in the line before we hit some new liquid coolers and more gaming content. The Phantom 630 is a sort of successor to the 820 we reviewed recently, but it attempts to fill the I don't have $250 burning a hole in my pocket market, which, and this is news to me, quite a few of you peons are a part of. First and foremost, I will say that the 630 is priced at $180, hence my attribution of the McMansion category, but ships with nearly identical cooling features, although slightly modified cable management options and fewer shiny lights than the Phantom 820, which is the $250 one. As always, let's hit the hard specs and an overview of functionality prior to getting into my opinions and the objective thermal data. Structurally speaking, NZXT's Phantom 630 isn't too different from the 820. It's slightly shorter and about 10 millimeters fatter, making for easier cable management, but the underlying frame is the same sturdy scaffolding we're familiar with from NZXT, and the outer shell isn't all that different either. The 630 ships with 4 fans presently, 3 of which are 200 millimeters in the front, top, and side, top being exhaust, and one 140mm in the rear, also exhaust, creating a somewhat standard airflow pathway, and there are optional expansion slots for another 200mm fan in the top, a 120 or 140mm internal pivotal fan, and up to 2 bottom 140 or 120mm fans. We had some fun enumerating fan configurations with the case, so if you're interested in determining what the actual difference an extra fan or two will make, stick around for the latter half of the video and I will show you some charts. The case will accommodate 4 external drives, up to 8 internal 3.5 or 2.5 drives, and 2 of those 8 are SSD only cages that are concealed behind the motherboard. It also hosts 9 expansion slots. The case ships in white, matte black, and gunmetal, and the one you're looking at is gunmetal. So the same with our 820, it was gunmetal. It's outfitted with a split-level motherboard mounting panel, and it's kind of interesting. It allows cable routing through the horizontal plane rather than the vertical plane. And this is particularly useful when dealing with the EPS, the 12-volt cable, and the fan cables. Other than that, the case can fit a CPU cooler of up to 170 millimeters in height, and that's with the side fan in place. And if you remove the side fan that ships with it, it's 200 millimeters in height, max for the CPU cooler. And video cards of up to 325 millimeters will fit, or if you remove the hard drive cages, you can fit them up to 507 millimeters. Speaking of that, the hard drive bays are completely modular, meaning you can remove some of them or all of them, which opens up space for a custom cooling loop or more breathable front intake. The hard drive bays are fitted with the same flimsy cages that are shipped with the 820, but no real love lost there. The case in total weighs around 27 pounds, so it's only a few pounds lighter than the 820, and is mostly the same size. I mean, at the end of the day, it's 10 millimeters wider, I believe, and slightly shorter. So, once again, very similar to the 820. There is, however, no mini hue on this one, so the lighting options are completely absent other than a rear I/O panel light, which is pretty nice. Very bright, but still nice. So I suppose that contributes a lot to the cost cutting because you're losing out on that hue option. But if you really care, you can buy your own custom lighting system for cheaper anyway than the $70 difference between the 2 cases. Overall, the case was described to us by NZXT reps as what they called the perfect case for those who couldn't quite stretch for the 820 but really liked it. And let's figure out if it is in fact the perfect case for those who can't stretch for the 820. So, throughout the build process, I was taken aback by how, even more so than its predecessor, how the 630 is one of the easiest cases to build with on the market. There are others that are great in this price range, don't get me wrong, but the 630 just really steps ahead and offers a couple new features that are very cool, like the ones I've mentioned. And the cable management options, first of all, are ample and positioned perfectly for the ATX boards and most VGAs, video graphics adapters, of course, and the split-level motherboard just makes it that much easier to conceal the cables. The dark side of the board features easily exploited cable routing contours and cable tie anchor points, so while still managing to cram 2 hidden SSD compartments and all the other rear-facing features. The case very easily accommodates all of those cables. There's just a ton of room, even for 3 or 4 PCIe cables. A fully modular drive bay system also allows for very customizable liquid loops and other airflow pathways, depending on how extreme you want to get. But the case will still mount your standard 3x120mm and 2x120mm CLC radiators and whatever normal mostly other radiators you have that are listed in the specs linked below. So check those specs if you're going to buy the case. That way you know if your radiator will fit. The interior is still plenty big, despite having ever so slightly shorter stature than the 820. NZXT resolved several of my complaints from their 820, including the SD card reader's inadequate clearance from the hinged front panel. Previously, if you saw the 820 review, previously the front door would not close with an SD card inserted. It was just terrible, because if you hit that door with your knee or something, I mean, you risk potentially damaging the card. So it was really disconcerting to leave it in there. But now it does so cleanly, and the card fits. So that was fixed. They also replaced the plasticky, toolless external clamps, with more rugged metal clamps, which seem infinitely more sturdy and reliable than the previous option. Further, we were told by an NZXT rep at CES that they've changed their painting process for cases, and although specifics weren't given, I'm hoping that it resolves the lack of resilience in the 820's exterior and the paint job. Previously, it sort of scratched very easily just from moving it from floor to table, which is not normal in our other cases we test. Overall, it looks like the company is extremely receptive to consumer media and media feedback, which is more encouraging than anything else, really. And they've taken advice from previous cases and added it to the 630, so hopefully they'll do so again in the future. And with that, let's talk about cooling and performance. The top of this case features a 3-step fan controller that effectively offers low, medium, and high settings for obvious noise and performance advantages where desired. Before I tested this against other cases, I tested it against itself using each of these settings, and in addition did a further test to check aftermarket cooling solutions to see if it was actually worth investing in more fans. All the testing methodology is defined in the article linked below. Just to quickly note, though, the aftermarket additions we made were pretty simple. I added an extra 200mm NZXT fan, the same one in the case, to the second top exhaust position, and an internal 120mm Silverstone AP123 fan to the drive's cages, angled upward toward both the VGA and CPU cooler. So here's the chart. The deltas are pretty uniform here, but for the aftermarket bar, they're sort of unimpressive, really. This has always been the situation with NZXT cases. Something about the way the airflow channels work, it just really does not improve, because at the end of the day, it's already, I think the channels are sort of already saturated unless you're using a very large video card, which I will talk about more in a moment. Adding a bottom fan to the 820 did result in a noticeable difference in GPU thermal dissipation. It was, I believe, 7 Celsius, I think. And the same, I suspect, would be true with the 630, though I did not test it due to complications explained in the article. If you do add an extra fan, if you were to add another fan, it should be in the bottom position to cool your video card, because you're not going to get any noticeable difference in the CPU. We're talking like 2 to 3 degrees max. I personally do not see the value in spending, $15-20 on another 200mm fan just for that. So, no immediate gain. Let's look at the cross comparison between other cases. This is the CPU cooling spread on all of our cases, the Nexus for the GPU. The Phantom 630 on high settings hovers at around 56.7 Celsius under load after accounting for ambient, 21C ambient, where the 820 is 56C with and easily within our 5% margin of error. So no huge difference there. This validates my expectations that the two would perform almost identically. Above the 630, everything above it is pretty much really just every other case on the bench other than the low-end Cobra we tested. But the larger, fancier cases will often be embellished with lots of plastic grills, dust filters, sound dampeners, and larger fans. So don't be too surprised by that. That means that just because you're spending more doesn't mean you get better cooling. It means that you get better other features like a quieter case. The P630 is quiet and cools efficiently, whereas something like the Armor Evo is fairly noisy but unbeatable in terms of thermal spec. Here's the GPU chart. Once again, the differences are largely insignificant. I'll make the standard disclaimer that we moved from our old GTX 580 to smaller cards for the new test bench, in part to simulate mid-range configurations and in part because modern cards are cooler and smaller. That said, we found that the deltas between GPU thermals on large and small cases are significantly more noticeable with large cards. What does this mean? Well, if you're running a GTX 680, for example, you're going to see more immediate advantages to using the larger cases than with a 7850. So pretty impossible to have a universal test bench, but we do our best. With all of this known, what's the end of the day message? The Phantom 630 is quite simply a resilient, solid, and trustworthy case. It's a pleasure to build in, and as with its predecessor, somehow makes cable management, wow, I can't say those words today, cable management surprisingly fun. The case doesn't have any major quality flaws to speak of, and the performance is about what you'd expect. With that noted, the Phantom 630 is here now and ready for building, so given its reliability, acceptable performance, and great ease of installation features, I'm comfortable recommending it to enthusiast builders. If you are looking for other options in the price range, I will once again reference Corsair's 650D, 600T cases, Silverstone's impending FT04, Thermaltake's Revo, though to be honest I'm not a huge fan of that one. And if you'd like something cheaper, there's currently a fantastic deal on Rosewell's Thor version 2 on Newegg. It's a $30 off promo code for a couple days, I think. Drops it to $90, very good deal. And I'd also suggest the P280 by Antec and Cooler Master's Storm series of cases, specifically the Scout and Sniper. That's it for this video review. Check out the full review below and leave a comment if you have any questions. I'll see you all next time. Peace.